So just a word of note first to start. So Dave contacted me about a week ago, told me I'd be presenting. I sat down with one of my directors of marketing, gave him 5 ideas and said, put a deck together. I have no idea what this looks like. Last time I did this, it was kind of a disaster how he put it together. I would never put my picture on a front deck, so I know it's going to continue in this vein.
You don't have a clicker, but I can do it, or you can.
Yeah, we can keep going. Yeah, you can go to the next. Get my picture off. Start with a little exercise. Who here thinks parking is a pain in the ass? Fucking awesome. Look at that. I almost hit like 5 people on my way here, navigating around USC students. Parking is a pain in the ass. And that's really why we founded this company, to make parking easier for consumers. It's a pain we're all complacent with. And people really historically have looked at parking and just said, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to be a pain. We're going to deal with it. And we realized that the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest solution was to tell consumers in real time all over the world where parking was available on and off the street. That's the company we founded in 2009, and I'll show you a little timeline, I guess, we put together. So the exodus or the origin of the company was in 2007. I was actually going to see a Die Hard film with one of my best friends, and we were going in Santa Monica, and we were looking for a parking spot. And we missed the film because we couldn't get parking. And we realized there had to be a better solution. We did a little research, realized there wasn't a solution. I was in graduate school at the time. And in 2009, I don't know why it says 2010, back to the deck, we founded Parking in Motion. We started on the ground, on our feet with clipboards, marking down parking locations all over Los Angeles. I would run into friends. They thought I was a complete loser. And we just started marking down parking locations across Los Angeles, and then we grow into the world. But we quickly closed our first deal actually with TomTom. We started working with TomTom. That was the first deal. That was kind of getting us kick-started. We raised a family and friends round of about $200,000, closed TomTom. It raised a few tens of thousands of dollars of cash for us. We put together a plan. Started to put together a database across the United States. We hired a tech firm. They developed $90,000 of technology. They built it in the wrong platform. We had to throw it away. It was a complete disaster. It was a huge mistake. But as we'll get through this deck, you'll see you fall down a lot and you start over again. When Dave contacted me, the ideas I gave to this director of marketing was ideas and lessons I'd learned about being an entrepreneur and the trials and tribulations about being an entrepreneur. So I thought I'd lead you guys through that. We raised funding from the Fontanellis Partners, IDG Ventures, Angelino Group, raised about $10 million, hired 30 employees. In 2015, as of September, we sold to a company called Inrix. All of our employees came over. They are based in right outside Seattle. They're the largest connected navigation supplier in the space. So if you have real-time traffic or real-time connected services in your car, that probably comes from Inrix. It's a natural fit for us. Over the years between 2009 and 2015, we built in our data to all the major all the major automotive OEMs, many of the largest navigation systems across the market to make parking easier for consumers. We can go to the next slide before Gewalt. All right, so parking sucks. We talked about that. The statistic I really like the most is this one right here. You guys can read those. This one's the most important. They say a professor actually from UCLA did a lot of studying in urban planning and found out that often in major metropolitan cores, 30% of urban congestion is caused by people circling the block looking for parking. Huge economic effect, huge environmental effect, huge pain in our ass, hence the application. Next slide. So what do we do? Built out a database of, I think Professor Belasco said, 96,000 parking locations? I don't even know. We're in 7 continents. We have 1 parking location in Antarctica. It's where they park those little trailers that they have. So the goal here was to build a database to allow users to find and compare and pay for parking ubiquitously across the world. So that means, the analogy I like to use is, that means whether you're in Duluth, whether you buy your Mercedes or BMW or Audi in Duluth, or you buy it in New York City, or you buy it in Los Angeles or Frankfurt, you have the same experience when it comes to finding parking both on and off the street. And then there are, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there are lots of mobile app providers or mobile companies that allow users to pay for parking via a mobile experience. There are dozens of these disparate providers across the globe. We've aggregated them under one interface so users can have one ubiquitous experience when it comes to finding or paying for parking via their dashboard or their navigation application. Feel free to interrupt if I'm getting into jargon or getting confusing. Our mission. So this is about INRIX. This is the company that acquired us. What's important here? So we have, as I told you guys, connected cars, smart city solutions. It's really a data and analytics company. They bring connected services, everything from traffic. Actually, I say they, but now it's we. Bring everything from traffic to parking, safety incidents. You can see, as you guys see the proliferation of smart vehicles, vehicles are communicating with one another. You can see that a vehicle a mile ahead of you slipped on black ice. That communicates to the car behind you, and you navigate in a different direction. It's those connected services that INRIX has been the innovator on. Autotelligent, which we don't need to go into right now, and then analytics platforms. Really, this is one of the largest connected services companies in the world. Whether it be real-time traffic information or weather service information or now parking information, they provide that to your dash systems or navigation systems. It's primarily, while ParkMe, as we founded it, was both a B2B, so it was a business-to-business company and a business-to-consumer company. INRIX is historically a business-to-business organization. So your professor was asking me earlier tonight, what are the changes that have happened post-acquisition? This was one of the big changes. We were being acquired by an organization that is historically a business-to-business organization. So there have been a lot of learning experiences associated with transitioning effectively from a primarily B2C organization to a primarily B2B organization. Okay, fundraising, a numbers game. So these are some of the lessons we learned, some of the things that I wish someone had grabbed me and shook into my skull. Shook? Shake? Shook? 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 Shook. Shook. Thank you. It wasn't even a guess of mine. It's horrible. I haven't slept in weeks. So, okay. All right, so we're going to talk about fundraising, and it's a numbers game. I think this is one of the things that I really didn't realize early on. Investors, who here wants to be an entrepreneur? Who wants to start a business? Raise your hand. So one of the kind of holy grails associated with starting a business is raising capital. And many entrepreneurs do not realize that venture capitalists, friends and family, people, whether it's dumb money or smart money, they want to find you. They want you to reach out to them. I would urge you, if you have an idea, to reach out to the biggest, baddest venture capitalists in the world, and my guess is you'll be able to set up a meeting. It's accessible. Their job is to bring in leads and build the next Facebook, the next Twitter, whatever the next innovative idea that you have. Their goal is to source you. They want to hear from you. I can't harp on this more and more. I have entrepreneurs that come talk to me all the time, and they ask for advice. They ask for introductions. I almost say you don't even need it. Just reach out. Come up with an innovative idea. One of our first pitches, and we will definitely not be playing this video. Please don't play it, actually. There's one of the world's most famous venture capitalists is a venture capitalist by the name of Tim Draper. And Tim Draper was the founder of Draper Fisher Jerviston. He's a very prolific venture capitalist. And we got in to meet with him. The meeting went very well. We unfortunately actually were wearing suits when we met him, at which point he looked at us and said, "What the fuck are you wearing?" But afterwards, we tried to figure out how we're going to maintain the hook. He hears from hundreds of entrepreneurs, and we didn't know how we'd remain relevant, remain present in his mind. Tim is known for being very boisterous, and he comes out and actually sings in front of audiences. He sings a song called The Risk Master. So what we did is, when we were young and dumb, which we still are, we created a song, we looped it with his background music, and we changed it to be about parking. And he wrote us back and said that was the best pitch I'd ever had. We actually got a term sheet from him a month later. It's about maintaining creativity, it's about maintaining relevance in people's mind, but it's definitely about reaching out. Only other point I want to say here is about being constant in communication. A lot of people believe that you start a company, you form a business plan, and then you start fundraising, and it's this formal roadshow of a process to raise money. Raising money is a consistent process. The second you have an idea, start talking to people. The second you have a business, start meeting with venture capitalists, even if you don't want money at that time. It's good to build the relationships. That goes exactly the same way with an M&A transaction. Once you've reached that point when you're ready to sell, for me, I reached the point where we were ready to sell, and I was like, all right, it's time to sell. Let's start meeting with people. Let's hire an investment bank. Let's start meeting with venture capitalists, start meeting with PE firms. Let's meet with strategic partners. And people that were more experienced with than me looked at me and said, wait, don't you know those people already? Build the relationships now, even if you don't have something to sell. Once again, the venture capitalists want to hear about you. They want to understand what you're doing. And it's important that you build those relationships now. Why did we sell to INRIX? They were our largest customer. The people you have business development relationships with now will help facilitate that next level of your business. Next slide. Please don't be Yoda. Pre-launch. Okay. Stealth mode. This is the biggest fucking waste of time I have ever heard. Do not put your company in stealth mode. If you have the new IP to build the most advanced supercomputer in the world, fine, keep it in stealth mode. Otherwise, tell everyone under the sun. One, don't be egotistical. People are not going to drop everything they're doing and steal your idea and then go start it on their own. There is a much, much higher likelihood that they help evolve your product, that they help evolve your idea, they help you find capital. Do not go into stealth mode. It is a huge mistake. And when I meet an entrepreneur and they look at me and they say, I'd like your help, but I can't tell you what I'm doing, I turn around. It is a waste of time. You don't need to have people sign NDAs. They're not going to drop what they're doing to compete with you. Dave asked me to speak like 4 years ago, and Dave responded, I think you were teaching a business plan class at the time. You used to. So when they were relevant. So I notoriously came into this class and said, fuck business plans.
As his opening line.
As my opening line. And I just want to be clear here this time. This is not saying to you guys, don't understand your market, don't understand your metrics, don't understand your user acquisition strategy, don't understand the financials associated with your business, the total addressable market associated with the business. You have to understand your business and the market you're entering. You do not have to write 100-page prose dictating how this business is going to play out for the next 5 years. You want to put a 12-page deck together that can detail your product and if it's consumer application, your user experience, the market you're addressing. I'm sure Professor Belasco has detailed out the things that you would need in a deck, et cetera. If people have talked to you about this, I'd be happy to send anyone an email that wants an email on what they need to have in a deck. But do not write. I made a huge mistake early on where a venture capitalist said you need to put together a 50-page document detailing your business over the next 10 years, everything from culture down to user experience. And I wrote it out, and less than 2 weeks later, it was an irrelevant document because the business had pitched, pivoted, and we had changed our strategy. Do not write business plans. Next slide. So build a dedicated and flexible team. So here's the deal here. You will fail. The question is not how often you'll fail, because you're going to fail all the time. It's about maintaining inertia and then getting right fucking back up again. I fail every day. I had an executive team meeting, and everyone in the executive team meeting an hour before I got here was yelling at me because I had decided to hire someone in Germany that they didn't think I should hire. You will fail every day. I had to apologize to my executive team and move on. You will fail. You'll have trials and tribulations, but it's just important about how fast you can get up again and how quickly you can maintain that inertia. Succeed or get arrested. Okay, so this is about guerrilla marketing. So we've taken a lot of risks. You heard about the risk of almost getting arrested. But I'm a huge advocate of guerrilla marketing. I'm a huge advocate of just running, throwing shit at the wall and seeing if it sticks. If it doesn't stick, it fails, and you get up and you try again, as we talked about earlier. So one of our greatest successes from a marketing perspective was, do you guys know the conference, South by Southwest, the music show, interactive film? So there's a huge conference that takes place, or huge festival that takes place in Austin every year. And we were about to launch the city of Austin. We were actually about to launch our consumer platform, and we were brainstorming what to do to launch the platform. And I had the nutty idea. You guys know what parking boots are? These things that enforcement officers put on people's cars so they can't drive? Yeah. So I had the idea that what we would do is we would get fake boots printed that had the ParkMe logo on it, and we'd in the middle of the day, when everyone was at their conference, we'd go around and we would boot every single car in the city of Austin, Texas. Huge risk. We didn't know if we were going to get arrested. We didn't ask permission. And people came out and fucking panicked. They're like running to their cars. They thought they'd been booted. It was a huge success. We got picked up by every major publication across the United States, detailing it as one of the best guerrilla stunts they'd ever seen. Huge risk, huge success. On the other side, we tried to do the same thing in LA. And we were just launching our product in LA, and I won't take credit for this idea. I'll blame it on my co-founder. My co-founder thought the ParkMe logo is a giant P. And my co-founder thought we'd get giant P's printed that were about yay high and yay wide. And we're talking 5,000 of these P's, like a dump truck full of giant P's. And we'd go around all night with a group of like 20 people, and we'd attach one to every single parking meter in Los Angeles. And we did it. And I get back to my office, and it's like 10 a.m., and I'm like, we got this done. One team's still out putting the P's on. And I get a phone call from a friend that's another tech company that's also in the parking space. His name's Albert. And he says, Alex, I heard you've been arrested. Are you okay? And I was like, been arrested? I was like, why would I be arrested? He's like, I heard you're doing this guerrilla stunt. As I'm talking to him, the mayor's office beeps in and says, if you do not remove the P's immediately, you will be arrested. At which point we all get back out and we go pull all the P's down. That was a disaster. But it goes back to the point for me, it's all about taking risks. You have to be willing to take that risk in order to garner the significant reward. So this goes to hiring and firing, which historically I've been very bad at. What I mean by this when I say I've been bad at hiring and firing, to be it's very, very difficult to find someone that you're going to want to collaborate with, someone that's going to be a family member, someone that you're going to want to work with day in and day out. And it's very hard to distill who that person is going to be from an interview. You can have the best interview under the sun, the best 5-stage interview with a social, and the person can work for you and they're a disaster. You can have the worst interview, and then someone else in your team says we should take a chance on that person, and they're amazing. I don't know if that's because I'm horrible at it or that's just how it works. Either way, what I would argue is you need to hire fast and fire fast. You do not want to ever have the experience where, ooh, should we fire that person? If you think that, you should fire them immediately. And you always have this fear that firing someone is going to be some huge, dramatic process. I remember the first person I fired, I thought was going to break the glass table and he was going to storm out. And he was like, oh, I completely understand. And that's just how it normally goes down. So you're laughing like, that's not how it, did you like storm out and break? But truthfully, you have to hire people quickly and fire people just as quickly. So I have hired an arms smuggler, a drug dealer, and my best friend. Nerds. I'll tell you a quick nerd story. Did I tell you this last time I was here? So my best friend and I started the company together. He was the CEO, I was the chief operating officer, and we were a 6-person company at the time, and we just hired a new VP of engineering, and we were sharing an office. Engineers were in the office next door, and a data team was in front. And I've been best friends with this guy since we were 5 years old, and every so often we throw shit at one another. And he started by throwing, nerds, the candy nerds. He just lobbed a nerd over to me, and I lobbed it back over to him, hitting him in the face. And at which point, he chucked it back at me and said, you better not fucking throw that back at me. Which I, of course, had to throw back at him. So I throw it back at him. He comes over and tries to unplug my computer and successfully unplugs my computer, at which point I go over to try to unplug his computer. at which point we get in a wrestling match in the office. And as I said, we've been best friends since we were 5. This is not like a light shoving match. This is like throwing each other against the wall. Computers are crashing down. I've crashed through one of the walls. And the guy that's the VP of engineering is coming in there, standing over, and meanwhile the head of data has come in and trying to break us up. And we're like, let it fucking happen! You got to hire people that you're willing. Look, I'm not arguing you should ever throw down with one of your closest friends, but I am arguing if you're going to work with your friends, they need to be your brothers. They need to be your sisters. They need to be people you're comfortable to fight with, not physically, but you're willing to fight with, that you're willing to argue with endlessly, because there are going to be decisions that will come across your desk that will test your friendship like you've never seen before. So you better realize that your friendship is stronger than your business. Armed smugglers, we actually hired a guy, well, the drug dealer, we actually hired a guy that had a pager and kept taking calls out of the office as he was dealing ecstasy out of our office. That was a disaster. We fired him quick. So lastly, don't be afraid to delegate. Really, I'm one of those guys that has a hat on and I like to keep it on, but really, you want to delegate as many hats as you can. You want to trust your team and allocate as many responsibilities to other people as possible. You want to empower people so you can not only succeed yourself, but you can ensure that they succeed, both professionally and then in your organization. Next slide. I like this picture. I just think this was, this is the reality. You spend a long time designing a product, you build out your business plan, and then you launch it in the market like this designer launched this road into the market, and everyone went a different way. That's the reality of how product development works, and I believe it should work. You want to launch and be agile. You want to get into the market quickly. You'll never know how your users are going to respond until you get a product or an opportunity out in the market. So I would just argue that nothing is going to be perfect. You don't want to launch when the product is perfect. You want to launch when you're at a point when you can agilely iterate rapidly. Yeah, that's about that. You can go on. I'm done with that.
You're done.
Wow. I'm done with all of that. One other point I was thinking about as we were sitting during the last presentation that I wanted to make. So raise your hand again if you want to be in business or an entrepreneur. Wow. And one person that's a musician. Not you, but you want to be in business as well. Okay. So one regret I have in my business career and my education is that I was not a double major in computer science. If you still have time to be a double major in computer science, I would urge you to be a double major in computer science. Being a computer science major is like learning how to be a mason worker back in 1850. It allows you to build the tools that you need to succeed. I manage a 10-person engineering team, and the learning curve has been 6 years, and I'm still illiterate. Even if you can gain that basic level of literacy in computer science, I would say it would be an invaluable tool, and you will not regret it for a moment. It's one of the biggest regrets in my life, and I would urge you not to make the same mistake. That's it for me. Yeah.
A few questions?
Hi, Alex. I'm Christine. I really love urban planning. Hi.
Oh, yeah, hi.
Hi, yeah. So I love urban planning. I love city planning, transportation, all that stuff. So I really love what you did with ParkMe, because you're right. It's pain in the butt, and it's just something that everyone deals with. So good job. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
So one thing I was curious, have you ever thought about working with government? Because they have access and they have the data that you need. So, okay, so you're nodding, so I'm assuming you have a story to this.
So two things. We work with governments all over the world. The benefit with governments is they have the data. You're right. The problem is, so that use case I described where we were reading all the signs off, we realized we could go to the government directly, or we could either issue a Freedom of Information Act request to get the data. We contacted a city and we said, do you have that data? They said, yes, we have that data. We'll send it right over to you. We were thrilled. we got 10 filing cabinets of work orders in handwritten language, handwritten English. The cities are advanced. They're becoming smarter. They often do not have the granularity of the data we want or maintain the data in real time so we can supply it to users to provide for a good user experience.
Right. I hope that with open data, I know City of LA is doing that, and they're posting a lot of information right now. So hopefully that gets better for you guys.
And we ingest all of the data from the City of LA launched a program called LA Express Park. We ingest all of that data into our applications and provide that data to end users all over the world.
And I have one more question. You said with friendship and working with friends. For me personally, I always separate, like, when I want to focus on something, I want to focus on it. And I want to keep my personal, intimate relationships out of it. But how do you feel about that kind of perspective when you're working on something that you're truly, truly passionate about?
I have a horrible work-life balance. And I have a horrible balance between friendship and my business life. So I might not be the right person to ask. But what I would say is no matter how delineated or juxtaposed you like to keep those two worlds, they're at some point going to come crashing together. When you have a conflict with your friend or your employee and they say, I'm going to take that to the board, and it becomes a board level decision where you're both fighting for your job, it's going to get personal. It unfortunately at times gets personal.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. I'm Neil. I was wondering, you have a really strong personality, how that's helped you and how it's been a detriment over the course of all of your business proceedings.
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm probably more boisterous in this situation than I normally am. You know, I think I'm trying to think how it's been, what the negative experiences have been with confidence and my ego, if you will. You know, I think at times my biggest problem becomes, you know, I think in my world, there are often two mantras. People either believe in meetings and schedule a lot of meetings or don't believe in scheduling a lot of meetings. I'm someone that believes in scheduling a lot of meetings. I like FaceTime. Sometimes my ego can get in the way because I request FaceTime with someone and I'm sending emails over here or paying attention over here. And I have to remember to focus and concentrate on the question and task at hand.
I noticed that on your app you have street parking now, which I'm really thankful for because I'm cheap. And I was wondering, on your app right now, it seems like it's only in Santa Monica and certain areas of Los Angeles. How are you getting the data for that, and how are you planning to expand, hopefully to USC, please?
I'll try to keep the answer short. Effectively, there are two ways we source that information. One, some municipalities across the United States are installing an infrastructure where there are sensors in the ground that tell people where parking spaces are available. Los Angeles has put the sensors in a lot of locations across the city, as well as Santa Monica. We have also built out an algorithmic model. You know, these new smart meters that take credit cards. We didn't want a city to have to put sensors in the ground because historically those sensors have cost $300 to install and then $30 per space per month in perpetuity. Not a viable model for a city. We built out an algorithmic model where we take the smart meter transactions, we combine that with externalities and other algorithms, and we tell a user in real time where they're going to have the highest likelihood of finding available parking. So we combine it with event feeds, we combine it with weather, real-time traffic, and the real-time payment information, as well as we do a historical survey on the ground to see how many people are abusing or illegally using handicap placards, for example. We amalgamate all that data together, and then we have red, yellow, and green line segments on the street that tell users where they can find parking.
That's super cool. Thank you.
I don't know why I'm calling on people.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for coming. My name is Sahil. I'm curious. Well, the conventional wisdom has been that the first few hires you are especially key, as one bad could doom your company. Could you tell us the story about how your first few hiring processes went? And
Horribly. So probably, well, you know, I spent our first hires were we tried to outsource tech. That was a disaster. We were non-technical. We couldn't manage an outsourced team. That was 70 grand out the door. Then we hired the most talented coder that I'd ever met, but had no social skills and couldn't convey to users, I'm sorry, not users, couldn't convey to non-technical executives how to build a product or couldn't articulate it accurately. That didn't work at all. Then we hired 2 more tech people, which were also disasters. And then we hired our CTO at the time, his name was Xander, and built out our initial infrastructure. And from there, I'd say it was effectively successful hires after that. The first 2 data hires they were data entry people. They were low-level data entry people. Now one is the director of operations, and now one is the director of marketing. They grew into those positions, and they've been fundamental hires to our growth to this date.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming. And also, I was just kind of curious because I was able to get your app and it was free, but like how you generate revenue and how you're able to expand after that.
Oh, it's an app. You don't need to make money. No, I'm just kidding. We'll erase that as well. So we monetize one of 2 ways. We license our data to navigation systems. So a company like TomTom or Audi license our data and build that into their navigation systems and are willing to pay us, let's say, anywhere across the board, but let's just say $3 per car per year to build that data into cars. And then the other side we monetize on is we allow consumers to pay for parking off-street across the globe. In those locations, parking operators are willing to pay us 15% of their top-line revenue to drive traffic. In other words, if we confirm a user to go to this lot and they pay for $10 parking, that parking operator will give us $1.50.
Hey, how are you? My name is Matt. Just had a quick question. So have you guys started, you say you work with TomTom, but one of the biggest companies now that do GPS stuff is Waze. Have you guys thought about working with Waze? And since they were bought by Google and you had a bad pass with them, you screwed up, has that affected you now?
What did we screw up with?
When you told them you had all the information
with Google. I know Waze very well. They have a great product. I would love to be integrated into their product. We have not done so as of yet. No, it has not hurt our relationship. That initial blunder, if you will, with the beard and the craziness, that had no effect on our go-forward relationship with Google. I know Inrix has done business with both Google and Waze in the past. I don't know where the relationship stands right now, but I hope to be able to do business with them in the future.
Hey Alex, thanks for coming. My name's Wise, which sounds like Waze, but so I wanted to ask, sort of looking forward, we've seen ride-sharing apps like Uber make a big difference, and so people are driving less. How do you see that affecting the demand for ParkMe? And also going down maybe 5 to 10 years, we are sort of expecting autonomous cars. So the good thing about that is they'll probably be using data, a lot of data. But then again, it won't be people in through the app. So how do you see that changing?
I sold my company. That's no longer my problem. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. So when we were going through our M&A process, we contacted one of the largest ride-sharing companies, and I won't say who it is, but we said, a friend introduced us who had been an early investor and said, I want you to meet these 2 companies. And the CEO of that company wrote an email back and said, I don't believe parking will exist in the future. I'm a futurist, and I have a tendency to believe in it. I don't think parking will be a problem in the future. I don't think our children know how to drive. But that's how I think about things. When I talk to most of the largest CEOs in the United States of the largest auto OEMs, they tell me that within the next 5 years, their cars are going to be fully autonomous. When you talk to the press release that just came out about Volvo, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Volvo announced by 2020, no one will ever die in a Volvo ever again. That was their press release, and it wasn't April Fool's Day. It was full stop their press release. No one will die in a Volvo ever again by 2020. If a car is autonomous, you don't need to park. You can just drive away and go back to your house. It's a question. It's an important question, and I don't necessarily know what the future holds, but I think it will be nonlinear. and hopefully it'll be different than we can all expect.
Last question.
Hi, Alex. My name is Madal. I really enjoyed your presentation. My question is, you described when you first had the idea for the app, it was really motivated by personal need and realizing that a lot of others also struggle with parking. I'm wondering what knowledge about parking and urban planning you had to acquire throughout kind of the startup phase of this business, and maybe you could share something that really surprised you.
I knew nothing about parking at the time. I learned that parking in the world is a $100 billion industry, that there are 4 parking trade magazines and about 20 conferences that take place in the United States on parking every year. I also learned that, unfortunately, I go and speak at a lot of these conferences, which was an unfortunate part of my reality. What else did I learn about parking? Parking is this very interesting market. It's not a black market, but it's definitely a gray market. I remember going to speak to a parking operator very early on in our career or the product, and he was downtown LA, and 2 interesting things happened. One, he didn't want to give us his data. And I said, why don't you want to give us your data? And he said, then my competitors will have all of my data. And this was just his rates and location information. And I said, do you know your competitor's data? And he said, of course. I drive around every day, and I look at my competitor's data. And I said, does your competitor have your data? He says, of course. He drives around every day and looks at my lot. It was that level of circular logic we had to battle and get through. Other thing that happened in that meeting is I said, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to bring all of your transactions online, and you're going to pay with a credit card. And he looks at me and goes, are you fucking kidding? I don't want you paying with a credit card. I was like, don't you want cash out of your business? He goes, of course I don't want cash out of my business. I was like, don't you want your attendants not to steal money from you? And he said, are you fucking kidding? And he points behind him, and there's a huge safe, and he goes, I'm stealing every day. And so it's a weird market to integrate, and how you get their data, how you build out technology within a market that's effectively stealing tax money or stealing money from consumers. It's a difficult market to break into.
Right. Last question.
Hi, my name is Bert. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm curious about the decision to sell the company and kind of what went into that, and when you were thinking about it, if you went to your team and were making sure that you were still going to keep the company that you originally built, and how, if you were worried at all about the ways it would change.
Yeah, of course I was worried. But that was part of the acquisition process. We were making a fundamental decision at the time. We had raised $10 million in Series A venture capital. We were going to raise our Series B. And in raising your Series B, you do one of 2 things. You talk to venture capitalists, you talk to your initial investors or your existing investors, and you also talk to strategic partners. And sometimes those dialogues about investing in a Series B become M&A conversations. And that's what happened to us. And both fundamentally for myself and my co-founder and our team, it was really important that our culture would remain the same, that our employees would remain as part of the company, there wouldn't be downsizing, and we found a partner in Inrix that would facilitate exactly that.
One more question.
A lot of pressure for this question. Thank you so much for coming. You talked a lot about the big picture. I was wondering about the day-to-day. What does your day look like now? Way back when you first started, were you living out of a box, eating a lot of mac and cheese? Like, how does the practicality of the whole process work?
So I met, right as I was starting the company, I met my wife at the time. And my best friend introduced us, and it was a blind date. And he said, look, I'm not going to tell you anything about Alex. I'm going to tell you 2 things. 1, he lives at home. 2, he reads parking magazines for fun. It worked out well, but I was living at home. We started the company out of my best friend's garage. We were bootstrapping. I put my bar mitzvah money in. He put his bar mitzvah money in. We did everything we can to raise money from friends and family. We had no idea what we were doing. I don't know if we still don't know what we're doing. But yeah, it was a mess. I think you do you do everything to get started. And that's important for venture capitalists as well. When you're pitching a venture capital firm and they say, how are you living? And you said, I've just started this company. I just raised $200,000. I'm taking $75,000 in salary. They're like, please see yourself out. It's really, they want to hear that you're bootstrapping. They want to hear every piece of capital that you're bringing in is going back into the business and not going into your pocket. So I think that's a fundamentally important aspect of the business. Internally in my company, anytime we come up with a new idea, they call it going back to the garage. You got to bootstrap, you got to be scrappy, and we try to bring that back even though we're a much larger company now.
Well, great questions, great questions. That's when I met him. I met him through his now wife, then his girlfriend, when they first started dating. And I mean, she just started dating you. Like, this is Alex. And she's like, he's in a startup. Startups can be a full range of, you don't have a job versus you're actually starting something. And it is.
You're unemployed, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everyone used to, like, when I went to school, like, being an entrepreneur, I mean, you didn't figure it out yet and you didn't have a job. Now it's cool. Everyone, I'm an entrepreneur. What does that mean? But just had met him, and I just remember, we were walking on some like roof party, and you're just like, I'm in parking, and you were almost like sort of like not embarrassed, but just like we're in this flashy Hollywood scene, and there's a guy in parking.
People ask me if I'm a valet.
Yeah. So it's been great to watch it, and he's been so head down over the past few years that like we haven't even seen each other in a while. So it's an old friend, it's a new friend. They'll stick around for a few minutes to answer some questions. Just two great journeys, one that's still taking off, one that's already transitioned, and it'll be interesting to see what you do next. We will edit whatever you guys want if you don't want it on here. But the only thing I have a request of you is can I get that whirly that you recorded in class? That was epic. So let's hear it for Nadine and for Alex. Come up and ask them some questions. Have a good week. We'll see you next week.